there's a development where ATCON has raised alarm as tanker drivers strike threatens telecom services in Lagos and Ogun. So the Association of Telecommunications Companies of Nigeria, ATCON, raised the alarm over an impending disruption of telecom services in Lagos and Ogun States due to the ongoing strike action by the Petroleum Tanker Drivers, PTD branch of National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers in NUPENG. So in a statement that was issued yesterday by the president of ATCON, so it revealed that the strike commenced yesterday morning. So it's going to be a problem for them, bearing in mind that they need diesel to supply power for many of to power the masts that they have spread around different parts of the country so that people can have network connection signals in their phones and make communication. So this is part of what we'll be talking about, power supply being an issue. And so companies need to provide alternative sources of power supply. Now, the means through which they can ensure that they provide themselves with alternative power supply, diesel. Those who carry the diesel, those who distribute the diesel, the tanker drivers are on strike. So now ATCON chairman is saying this may threaten network operations. This may threaten the operations of telecommunications workers in these states where the strikes are ongoing, Lagos and Ogun particularly. And these states are critical commercial hubs in the country. Doc.
Yeah, I think they are part of the things and arguments that we can put. Yeah, we put them on the table on a daily basis to see what are our problems. They look very complex. And then, of course, it makes them look as if our government itself don't really know what to do. Here we go. What's the problem? The tanker drivers are arguing that police are harassing their members. We don't know what these incidences are. That is called harassment. Are they the fact that government is police is deliberately after them, making them not to lift petrol? Or is it that they are parking at non-designated places and they are taking laws into their hands? Now, these are conversations that we must have. But because you find that strike has become something that has become normal in our environment, every now and then we see people taking the option of going on a strike. And I think the alarm that is being raised here is the fact that, and which of course one of the things we spoke to last week, is the fact that most of these telecom operators actually are relying on diesel to power their masts. Otherwise, there will be no services around because the discos are not able to make provisions to some of the places where you have this mask, and then of course even relying and even the band A are not enjoying their 20 hours as some people have argued. So all these are the conversations and that really making business environment really untidy as we see it today. But I think we should just, the Inspector General of Police should not wait for formal maybe petition to intervene. Because if the police are singled out for this harassment, the police authority must also clear the air. Where is this harassment happening? Are there evidences that support this harassment? And then the air be clear so we know whether there are frivolities in these claims or there are things that are really very genuine. And these are things that we want to see happen in the environment, that if something of this nature is happening, the police who's been alleged here to be harassing tanker drivers, their spokesperson should be able to do some investigation and speak out, and then we really understand what is happening. And then it is easier then to make a judgment of whether it is the right thing to do at the moment or not.
You know, this issue just more brings to the fore the challenges that we were talking about when we discussed the tax issue. Infrastructure is a critical problem for individuals, for businesses. Imagine the cost of diesel, and this company still needs to buy, they still need to spend so that they can have the operations ongoing. That eats a lot into their profit. Now, they are not even challenged. The challenge here is not that they're spending to provide themselves with alternative power supply. It's that those who will supply them the fuel for the power supply or for the alternative of power supply is not forthcoming because of the strike. Yes, I know how strike has become a tool for those who have it to weaponize at every instant. So sometimes there's no room for dialogue. There's no room for negotiation. People don't talk. The next thing they go to strike because they have that weapon and they can use it wherever they want. Now, going to the police issue, which the tanker drivers have alleged extortion and harassment. Well, I would have expected that before it came to the point of strike, perhaps there may have been some complaints here and there, but maybe nobody listened. But I do not know for a fact if there was some formal complaint by Nupeng or even the tanker drivers. So I think before any strike action takes place, there should have been other measures employed. You should have employed, exhausted other options. So strike now becomes the last tool that you resort to use. But in this case, I don't think that the Inspector General of Police needs to wait any further for the strike to prolong, and then the telecom operations are affected, businesses are affected, before we begin to dive into the matter and investigate what's actually happening. Are there rules that the tanker drivers need to comply with? Because they too are not totally blameless. If we go on the roadside, you see the way some of them park. Even the way they drive on the road. So that perhaps should have even been a duty of the FRSC to check, because it falls within their mandate to ensure that road users comply with road rules. But that's for the FRSC. But for the police, I don't think we need to wait, because once telecommunications in Lagos particularly and in Ogun State is affected, businesses will suffer. Businesses will lose money. So let's not wait until things get to a situation where it's now very problematic before we step into it and try to resolve it.
Okay, so this issue is quite technical, and I expect both parts to be responsible. See, one thing that will make Nigeria, or Lagos State in this particular case, to be effective in administration and putting laws in order to curb any form of excesses is both those who made the law, who are enforcing the law, and the one who is meant to abide by the law, both comply. So tanker drivers are complaining bitterly that the police or the Lagos State Task Force harassed their association members, beat them up for unknown reason, tow their trucks to their stations and, lock it up and, collect money from them incessantly. And they cannot continue to cope like this. And that one thing they need to do is to go on protests, is to go on strike, so that
it's a form of protest.
It's a form of protest. It's the last
In
resort.
fact, that's even the highest level of protest.
Yes,
so when
it is.
you go
But
strike.
when your association members are being manhandled, they are being beaten, they are being maltreated.
For what reason?
Okay, fine. I'm going to that part where they actually brought out a reason. They said for unspecified reasons, they just tow their trucks. You would know that there's no complete truth in that they throw their trucks, they find them money unnecessarily, they lock up their association members, and that they had to resort by protesting. And when the Lagos State government was actually defending, they said, okay, the Lagos State government is not doing that, or the task force is not doing that unnecessarily. They are just making sure that the tanker drivers comply with their e-call-up system. So what's their e-call-up system in Lagos? It was established in September 2024, and it is meant to regulate the incoming and the exit of tankers and trucks into Lagos State. And one of the purposes is to make sure that they are quite scheduled in order for them to, constitute chaos or constitute traffic jam in Lagos State, so there can be free movement of vehicles. But that the tanker drivers has the responsibility to comply with the e-call-up system. But that most of the times you see them, they are parked on the road. They parked in areas whereby you drive in your personal car, there are these commercial vehicles can run into them, or they can just cause gridlock, unnecessary traffic on the road. And the task force has a responsibility in Lagos to make sure that, look, tanker drivers or big trucks comply with the e-call-up system. And when they don't do that, then they not carry out their own actions. So now let's talk about this task force in Lagos State and the way and manner they carry out their action in trying to make sure that tanker drivers, comply with these rules that have been set in place. On what occasion? Now, whilst we know that the tanker drivers on their own, in fact, we don't need to be told, because when you drive on Lagos roads, you see the way these people drive, you know that they are not, you cannot absolve them. In fact, if anybody hears this conversation, first of all, he's going to scream, tanker drivers in Lagos State, because we know their exploits. Most of them, they are a moving mobile danger on the road. So we need to regulate that. However, when the task force officials carry out their responsibility, on what occasion do you have to now start beating them up?
I think the
why
question
not get them?
be...
No. Why not get them arrested if they faulted, and if they are to pay back, if they are being fined for parking unlawfully on the road, and they are to pay back? Why can't we just make that system of paying that fine a way that even the task force themselves enforcing that law do not see that as an opportunity to defraud the state or to collect bribe?
This is what I think. We live in a society where sometimes lawlessness is the order of the day, and it's a two-wrong situation, two wrongs never making right. So while you have the tanker drivers, some of them very unruly, you also have the task force who are caught out from the same society, who sometimes are unruly. So you have two unruly,
Sometimes.
yes. So not all the time. No, not all the time. You can't say all the time. You can't have every one of them behave like that. You must have some very decent ones who have been trained. Now, there are those who, the only way they know how to carry out their duty is to be unruly. So when you meet a hostile defaulter, it's as if, I'm the authority here, and you're being hostile to me. So you find that they want to use force. And it's a force meet force situation. So the less force bows to that. Perhaps there has been altercation, not to hold brief for that, but I'm just trying to paint what could have led to the situation. But we cannot take as truth the account of the tanker drivers, because that may not be the true reflection of what had been going. There may have been some exaggeration, knowing what they are also capable of doing. But I think it is time for some investigation. This is day 2 of the strike. So we do not need to let it get to 1 week before the activities of the task force is investigated, the activities of the tanker drivers are investigated, the activities of the police which have been called out here are investigated. All of these people, they are stakeholders in this matter. So when investigation has been done and see who have not been conducting themselves well, then there have to be strict actions to ensure that everyone stays within their role. You conduct yourself as a tanker driver within what the law says. You as a policeman, you enforce the law in accordance with the specifications of the law. So the task force too should be well trained. But if we have situations where certain things are not made clear, new rules are not made clear, let's also understand the literate level of the people we are dealing with. Not to say that many of them are not literate, but let's understand their disposition and find better ways through which these new rules can be enforced.
Okay, so
you see, for me, it's simple. There's so much that we have to deal with as a society. If we must get to that point where we expect, or the Nigeria of our dream that works well, then discipline becomes fundamental. You see, there are a lot of things that we do with sentiment in this country. That where people are violating established orders and rules, and then they will be claiming right on top of the violation, I think is the biggest challenge that faces this nation. And I have always said this, our problem as a nation is indiscipline. Until we are able to tackle the problem of discipline, then we may not get too far. If you drive on Nigerian road, you see especially those who are commercial drivers, including these tankers, are not left out. Disregard for institutions is a hell. I remember the last time there was this forum between the Lagos state government and organized private sector last year, and this same issue came up. And somebody raised a point and said, look, why is it that these yellow bus drivers don't obey traffic rule? And government seems to be looking at it. I remember the deputy governor of Lagos State answering and said, look, you see, some of these people who are doing enforcement, they are also human beings. And they are exposed to dangers most of the time. And he gave an example where they tried to regulate those conduct in Amu ward of it, and 2 policemen were killed by these people. So lawlessness has become a norm in our environment. And because people feel that they have the instrument of force, in this case, the strike action, they want a situation where you have to legalize an otherwise illegal behavior. So if you need an e-tag to enter the town, why will you enter town without an e-tag? And of course, this was made very clear that you have to take your turn. So you don't need to queue for 10 days to take a fuel. Let's alternate it. Since, of course, only Lagos is taking out fuel, trucks that are coming in, when you are scheduled, that's when you are supposed to be in town. So why do you violate those rules and not complain about harassment? Are there incidents where people who didn't violate this rule are accused? See, there are also some things that we can also do by arbitration or even going to law to get justice on some of all these issues. But for blackmailing state institutions, just because you want to have your way, I think it's not a way to make progress.
Okay, so we'll wrap up by saying that he who calls for equity must come with clean hands. The tanker drivers, you really do not have clean hands here. We know, because we see the manner in which many tanker drivers carry on their activities. But because it has come to a situation like this, we ask that the police force, investigators, Lagos State government investigate the activities of the task force, and the Tanker Drivers Association should also, their leaders should also investigate the manner in which their members carry on their activities in Lagos and Ogun State. And let's not make strike the first call, the first action that we take. There is room for negotiation, for talk about this. Where you feel that your right has been infringed upon, you can make a formal complaint, and let's see where that leads to, instead of everybody trying to wield a weapon at this, maybe not slightest provocation, at any provocation. So we hope that it gets better and the strike action doesn't continue, so that businesses are not affected at the end of the day.